So on this demo, we're going to have a look at a painting by Tom Garrett, a master study here, and we're going to look at try to recreate some of those wonderful soft atmospheric effects he's got there. So stick around and I shall show you how I would do it, and I'm quite pleased how the painting came out in the end, so hopefully you'll get something from this. So don't forget to hit the like and subscribe if you're new to the channel, and take a look in the link in the description if you want to have a look at my website for membership options. And all of this is going to be painted over, so it doesn't matter if I get a hard edge here because that's going to be much darker anyway. And there's a little splodges. They'll be useful for later, I'm sure. So it goes slightly darker down here, which is perhaps a tree off in the distance. Start thinking about retaining some areas where it's going to be light. Maybe a bit of cerulean blue. Strengthen that blue, but because the paper is so wet, that will lighten quite a bit. You know, that may look like I've gone a little bit too dark, but that's going to lighten. And I'm going to throw a bit more water on there. So you've got two options. The paper needs to be wet, and you can keep working on it, adding paint, taking paint away, or it needs to be dry. But that stage where it's neither dry or neither wet, you'll get a mess. So that's why I'll just keep that wet. So that bit of blue, it's quite intense, that blue. It's in there. And I find lifting off with a brush or a sponge works better than doing that with the paper, because you will damage the paper. Sometimes I might just dab a little bit to put a bit of texture in, but so it needs to be slightly darker in tonal value there. So a bit of the blue and the red to create a purple. But the paper's really damp there, so we're getting this explosion of paint there. So we won't get any hard edges there, which is, we don't want any at the moment. So there is actually some hard edges here, but the paper's too damp to get that, so that'll have to wait until it's nearly dried, or even say wait for it to dry and then do it, and then manipulate the edges into there. So if that's too purple, muddy it up by using a bit of yellow. That's a yellow ochre I'm using there. And it looks to be more maybe blue there. But, starting to dry the paper now, so play safe. So could do with just a wash maybe of yellow ochre, but again very watery over here. There's a bit of that blue in there. So the rest of that is going to be painted over, and I can see a little bit of that yellow coming through the tree in places that may or may get used, possibly. So the temptation is to paint these trees into here, which will get a soft edge, because this is just damp at the moment. So perhaps we'll do that. So I'm going to use the Skoda Ultima here, because that's quite good for doing these shapes. So because the paper's probably still quite damp, so if the paper is at that awkward stage where it's neither dry or neither damp, as long as you don't add lots of water on it, so this isn't too watery here, so I'll get a soft edge but I won't get a run back. But if that was really watery, we'd get a right mess. So I suppose that's the thing to remember. If you're going to be painting on that awkward damp stage, don't use too much water. But it's a great stage to paint when the paper is at that awkward stage where it's neither dry, neither damp, or neither dry, neither wet. So it's damp, because you can keep these hard edges, these shapes, but they're not really hard, that they do soften quite a bit. So, and it's almost impossible probably to teach that. You just have to feel it, paint, and you'll get to know through experience what's happening. So again, I wouldn't worry too much about trying to replicate these colours. Just go for the tonal value. It's a greeny grey, and things will happen here, and you just got to let it happen. Don't fight it. Leave a few sky holes. Just dip into random colours. A bit of hands of yellow I've just dipped into there, just to warm that up a little bit. Painting around that tree. And just connecting things up. So this tree is obviously in front of that tree there, so it's not painting this tree over the top of that one. So this Skoda Ultima is great for doing these kind of marks. And obviously we've got to pull that through on that side. And anywhere where we don't really want any hard edges, we can just take a damp brush and just throw some water on and create some soft edges off in the distance there, and even throw a bit of water on the top here. So while we're perhaps waiting for that to dry a little bit, we can have a go at putting in the tree here. And when I get things like this going on, I just keep an eye on it, that I can see that that part is too dry and that's too wet. So what I can do is just wet that area so it's all wet basically. And this is where we're going to get some interesting effects, hopefully. And we've got this trunk down here, so over here first. So we've got, again, don't want to be adding much water over here, so that's too dark in tonal value, so let's just lighten it with that little lot. So the paper is now still damp here, but only just, so we will get a hard edge here. So obviously he was very confident with his watercolours, that there's a lot of technique here he's using, which shows that he had a good understanding of how the watercolour is going to behave. So now smaller brush, and I'll just manipulate that into there. So I don't want the hard edge here, so if I just make this area wet down here, that tree will just disappear into there. So before this tree dries, if we put some darks in here, again we'll get the soft edge rather than hard edges that, like a lot of toneless paintings, it's all very soft in here. So some darker paint. So no, what's it called? Neutral tint with a bit of yellow ochre, a bit of cadmium yellow, just to get a dark green, even a bit of lemon yellow. But more, you don't want it bright green, just really dark. Even add a bit of red just to neutralize that green a little bit. But not a lot of paint, not a lot of water, should I say. A lot of paint, not a lot of water. So on the dry paper we'll get the hard edge, but as soon as it touches that damp paper we're going to get that soft edge. So this is the underside of the tree that is dark, bit of burnt umber because it looks warmer over that side. And again, it's all very abstract what he's got here, so you know it's difficult to replicate everything he's got here, so just do the best we can. And again, he's add a little bit of blue on the underside of this tree here. So this is now much thicker paint I'm using here for these branches that are sort of twiddling and curling all over the place. Need more water on the brush. And if you enjoy these master studies, take a look at the link in the description to my website where I've got membership tier 2, and there's currently an offer on as well at the moment, so take advantage of that, and that's available till the end of the year. A little Christmas present for yourself maybe. And there's a whole category there of master studies alongside lots of other videos with all the reference images and traceables. There's actually over 200 videos now in the archives, so take a look. Let's get on with the demo. Don't forget to that like and subscribe as well. And if in doubt, splash a bit of water on, mess it up a bit. Let's add a little bit more of a green hue to it up here, but not too much because it will end up a muddy mess. So we need to connect all of that to this tree here that looks to be a warmer kind of burnt sienna. So lost where we are, so it's about there. Again, painting up into there to connect all of this up. Just use a bit of water. The important thing is to just retain that light that's on that tree. Dab a little bit off there, and it's all just very grey over here. So looking at the painting, you know, I think he's used a lot of water, whether that was in the printing process, if that's how he painted it, or what I'm doing here, just splashing water on and kind of hoping for the best, really. There's some dark in there, that's too much paint. So half a tube of paint on there, let's just take that off. give it a little spray, see what happens. So we've got a little bit of warmth in the foreground here. So a bit of pyrrole orange and a bit of alizarin crimson. You can see some orange there and there. That's going to eventually go up that tree across here, and then mix all that together, which will give me a grey. Down here, there's a bit of light coming through here, you know, and that's, I get asked all the time on YouTube, please can you tell me what colours you're using? You know, it's not very helpful if you don't tell me what colours you're using. Well, no idea. What colour was that? You tell me. But that's a light shape, that's a dark shape that's grey, and that's an orange shape, and soft edges in here. So just using that brush to just manipulate all of that. Spray bottle in here. And to paint loose like this, you just got to be quick, confident, go for it. And that's why these master studies are great, because they've worked out all the composition for us, done all the hard work. Mist through there. So let's be careful with the tissue. The tissue will damage the paper like it just did there. The brush doesn't so much, and the sponge doesn't either. So bit of texture maybe on that tree. That was a little bit too dark. A bit of burnt umber in there. Again, for painting things like bark, fingers are great. You put your mark on there and then just manipulate it a little bit. You could scratch out a branch. Again, don't get carried away with that, because it works well, it's good, and then you think, well, I'll do it all over the place, and then it's the right mess. It's just a dark under there. So it's looking okay, so don't mess with it. So we can put the tree in over this side, which is the important part of that composition. So it's just a grey. So the blue and the orange will give us a grey. And there's too much paint and water on the brush, so I just take a little bit off and just test the paper. Is the paper dry enough here? Yeah. And maybe just throw a little bit of very watery yellow ochre in there. And as he's got there, it disappears into the mist. So the way to make things disappear is just put some water on there and just dilute it away to nothing. And then just a few darks. It's a little bit darker as it goes up under there. A few little curly branches. Again, even though it's a small shape, you still need to pay attention to tonal value. If I go too dark with it, the effect will be spoilt. And less is more, you know, that's not doesn't need any more than that really. Maybe a little bit of a dark there just to suggest that the base of the tree. But again, it's all just soft. So we've got that nice little curve there. So before the paper dries, and I need to make decisions here that I need to go a little bit darker in there, maybe. Add that little bit of texture. And if you do it while the paper's damp, it'll be better. Now, is that dark enough? And by making this wet down here again, I can now paint this tree and it will connect to there. So let's just clean that off for a moment. And it's a new artist that I've come across, and you know, I would never have painted probably this as he's painted it here, but you know, I'd love to paint like this. And it's all loose and spontaneous, and you know, looks great. Which, you know, credit has to go to the artist who originally painted it. But the challenge is to try and put some of that into our own work. So nice clean wash in there, which really pulls that forward, and then we can make this look like it's a cylinder by just darkening it around the edges. This is damp here, so that's going to connect up nicely down there. Slightly warmer pyrrole orange, and again, warmer things tend to come forward. Warmer colours, should I say. So that orange will come forward, the blue will recede. And now just look how he's just understated everything. You know, that little bit of detail on the bark is it's just suggested. And that's half our problem. We're just trying to put too much detail in when it's unnecessary, and trying to be too perfect. Mess it up. And I suppose the thing is, make it look like you intended that messy mark. So this looks very Australian, this tree. So just a few little marks, but again, don't just make it all solid. You know, just leave a little bit to the imagination. And probably still scratch out a little bit there. And a good telltale sign is when you're looking for things to do, that's when you should stop, which is probably about there. Well, I think probably could do with it being slightly darker on that side. Otherwise, you know, it can look unbalanced. There's too much weight on this side, and just by maybe putting that dark in there, it balances the scene. So hopefully you enjoyed that. I was pleased how it came out, and I think I learned quite a bit as I do with these master studies. I think it's how I've learned to paint watercolours. I'm a self-taught artist, been painting for over 20, probably 25 years now, and I paint daily, and I share that with my members on my website. So if that's something you'd like to take part of, and we also have a members forum as well on the website, so you can share your images and interact with me on the forum as well. So don't forget to like and subscribe. And also remember, if you join the membership, there's no adverts. That's probably one of the most tricky things to do, is to actually put the brush down and stop. Lovely painting that is by Tom Garrett. It's come out nice, and I say full credit has to go to the original artist. But if all I get from this is that it inspires me to go even a little bit looser than I ordinarily do, and that has worked because I threw loads of water on it and just let things happen, explosions and all this sort of stuff here. And on another day it could have gone the other way and been a disaster, and I'd be very embarrassed now. But sometimes they just work, and you know, that's come out really nice. That the light here that that's worked well. That's worked well. A little bit of paint left the white paper here. You know, that's worked well. Didn't necessarily think about that. That just happened. So the watercolor gods were with me on that one.